when I was in one of my earliest pastorates, and it stood out to me there more than any other place, but there were a number of people, and it was, interestingly enough, more the older people than the younger, who would speak to me about the old Bible, and they meant the Old Testament. And they would say, oh, that's, some reference would be given, some statement made, a quote or half a quote, and they'd say, oh, that's in the old Bible. And you could tell by the tone of their voice that they were dismissing it because it belonged to that old out-of-date Bible. And I can actually, now that I'm thinking about it, go back in my memory to where my dad got into a discussion when I was just sitting in the car as about a 6 or 8 year old boy and listening to two grown men, my father and another man, talk about the fact that they wanted to be New Testament Christians. They didn't, so they were focused on the New Testament and not on the Old Testament, which is, of course, 2/3 of the Bible or thereabouts. And so it's really quite interesting that we've been so quick to dismiss the Old Testament. And Andy Stanley became infamous back in 2017 when he publicly preached about unhitching ourselves from the Old Testament and declaring we don't need the 10 Commandments and so forth. Now, on some very factual and practical level, he could not be more wrong, because when Jesus, of course, said that the supreme commandment is to love God and the second is like to it, to love your neighbor as yourself, he was not in any way doing away with the 10 Commandments. He was summarizing the 10 Commandments. If you think about it, the first half of the 10 Commandments, some divide it 4 and 6, and some divide it 3 and 7, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that the first several commandments, right down through, I think, remember the Sabbath day, are all about our focus on God, our love for God, and then we focus on our fellow man, our neighbor, in honoring our parents and not stealing, not killing, not committing adultery, not bearing false witness, and not coveting, and so forth. So you can see then that Jesus is merely summarizing, not dismissing. In fact, at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus himself says that we must not reduce the law by a single jot or tittle. And of course, those are old-fashioned words, but what they mean is the jot is the Hebrew letter yod, which is just like what we would think of as an apostrophe. It's the smallest letter in size, and then the tittle would be just the little tip on the backside of a letter that changes the letter, like from a beth to a kappa, which is or a kaf, which is the difference between a B and a K, and all that changes is there's just a little tail, just the tiniest little stinger stuck to the back of what looks like a backward C. Without the little stinger, it's a K sound. With the little stinger, it's a B sound. But it's the smallest thing. And Jesus says you can't even reduce one part of a letter from the law without being in trouble with God. And so it's really important then that we understand we're not allowed to unhitch ourselves from the Old Testament. Paul again speaks of love being the fulfillment of the law in Romans chapter 13, but there he then goes ahead and begins to list all the things that are contained in the law, and he says all this is summed up by loving your neighbor. But if you ask then a Bible question, which is, what does it mean to love my neighbor as myself? Then the only answer is to obey the 10 Commandments. And so I'm just saying then that he could not have been more wrong. But in modern times, what we've discovered, and this is where I think Stanley is really dangerous. It's easy to refute his rejection of the 10 Commandments, but the other thing that he does is by rejecting the Old Testament, he rejects so much of what the Bible teaches us as to where we come from and who we are in God's sight. And that's become increasingly important in recent years because we're looking, for example, at the fact that we're faced with all this with transgenderism as a popular movement, where it's kind of become the one movement you can't say anything negative about anymore. You can speak negatively about people who promote abortion. You can speak negatively about people who promote the sexual revolution in the old-fashioned sense of that word, but you cannot say a thing negative about an individual who says, I know I was born with all the physical makeup of a man, but I believe I'm a woman, or vice versa. You can't speak against transgenderism. And in fact, we now have in Canada, we have cities, we have provinces, and we have now the federal government hard at work to make laws that will criminalize any kind of conversion therapy, even the mildest form, which might be, I'll pray for you as you wrestle with some of these issues. If you even say that and you imply that I hope you don't go that way or go in that route, or go in that direction, you're in trouble. Well, where do we support the idea that that God expects us to be male and female as we are born? Well, it goes all the way back to Genesis chapter 1. Male and female created he them in the image of God, created he him, in the image of God created he them. And so mankind was made male and female, and it's important for us to accept that we are what God made us to be. Now, in every case, there's always a resistance to what God made us to be. God made me to be a truth teller, but there are times when I want very badly to tell a lie. So I get very upset with God in my spirit because I know that he doesn't want me to tell a lie. I want to tell the lie, but I can't tell the lie without offending my Creator. Well, it's precisely the same if I say, well, I don't want to be a man, I want to be a woman, but I realize that I can't become a woman or even try to be a pretend woman without offending my Creator. And we need the Old Testament to establish how God made us and what God made us for and what God is doing in our lives to bring us back to himself. All of that depends upon the Old Testament. And so I just have a real problem with anybody who says we need to unhitch ourselves from the Old Testament. It tells me, it scares me because it implies that we're talking to a man who hasn't really read the Old Testament. And yet I read somewhere that he has 33,000 average attendance in his main church, and then the satellite churches, he has over 30,000 people in worship on a Sunday morning. He's responsible for shepherding this flock, and yet gives the impression he has no idea what the Old Testament is about, and that's a very scary concept.